So as we finish chapter 6, let's talk in detail about vegetarian diets. So in many parts of the world, diets are based on plant proteins called vegetarian diets, and they evolved mostly out of the necessity because animal sources of protein were limited, either physically or economically in those areas. We know that animals require more land and resources to raise and are more expensive to purchase than our plants. But in developing countries rely primarily on plant foods to meet their protein needs. So for example, in rural Mexico, most of the protein in the diet comes from beans, rice, and tortillas, like from corn. And in India, proteins come from lentils and rice. But as populations' economic prosperities rise, the proportion of animal foods in the diet typically increases. Like in developed countries, people normally eat vegetarian diets for other reasons rather than economic, such as health, religion, personal ethics, or environmental awareness. So what are the types of vegetarian diets? People can say they're vegetarian, but there's different types. We have semi-vegetarians, pescatarians, lacto-ovo-vegetarians, lacto-vegetarians, and vegans. So let's just talk about a vegan diet. So if we talk about a vegan diet, they eliminate all animal products. It's a plant-based diet that does not include any eggs or dairy or fish. A semi-vegetarian diet, those people exclude red meat, but they might eat fish and poultry as well as dairy products and eggs. A lacto-ovo vegetariarian excludes all animal flesh, but includes eggs and dairy products such as milk and cheese. Lacto-vegetarian excludes all animal flesh and eggs, but includes dairy products. And then a pescatarian excludes all animal flesh except fish. So what are the benefits versus the risks of vegetarian diets? So a vegetarian diet can be a healthy, low-cost alternative to the traditional American meat and potatoes diet. Vegetarians have been shown to have lower body weights relative to height and a reduced incidence of obesity and other chronic diseases such as diabetes, cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure, and some types of cancer. The lower body weight of vegetarians is a result of lower energy or calorie intake, primarily due to the high intake of fiber, which makes the diet more filling. The reductions in the risk of other chronic diseases may be due to lower body weight and to the fact that these diets are lower in saturated fat and cholesterol, which normally increases our risk of heart disease. Or it could be that vegetarian diets are higher in whole grains, legumes, nuts, vegetables, and fruits, which have fiber, vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, and phytochemicals, which we know now that these substances have been shown to lower risks of chronic diseases. And it's also likely that the total dietary pattern, rather than a single factor, is responsible for the health-promoting effects of vegetarian diets. Additionally, to reducing the disease risk, diets that rely heavily on plant proteins versus animal proteins are more economical. So, for example, a vegetarian stir fry over rice costs about half as much as a meal of steak and potatoes, yet both meals provide a significant portion of the day's protein requirements. A small steak, a baked potato with sour cream, and a tossed salad provide about 50 grams of protein, whereas a dish of rice with tofu and vegetables provides about 30 grams of protein. Are there any risks to vegetarian diet? Really, despite the health and economic benefits of vegetarian diets, you could get nutritional deficiencies from a poorly planned vegetarian diet. Protein deficiency certainly would be a risk when vegan diets that contain little high quality proteins are consumed by small children or by adults that might have increased protein needs, such as pregnant women or those recovering from illness or injury that we talked about before. But most people really can easily meet their protein needs with lacto and lacto-ovo vegetarian diets, because these diets contain high-quality animal proteins from the eggs and milk, which complement some of the limiting amino acids in the plant proteins. Some vitamin and mineral deficiencies are of greater concern for vegetarians than is protein deficiency. Primarily of concern for vegans is B12, because this vitamin is found exclusively in animal products. So vegans typically must take a B12 supplement or consume foods fortified with B12 to meet their need for this nutrient. Another nutrient of concern might be calcium, because in the American diet anyway, dairy products are the major source of calcium. So diets that eliminate these foods must include alternative plant sources of calcium, such as greens and tofu. But with the popularity of greens, that's becoming less and less of an issue. Likewise, because much of the dietary vitamin D comes from fortified milk in the American diet, this vitamin has to be made up in the body from exposure to sunlight or consumed by other sources. When we think of iron and zinc, this may be deficient in vegetarian diets because they exclude red meat, which is an excellent source of these minerals, and iron and zinc are typically poorly absorbed from plant sources. Because dairy products are low in iron and zinc, lacto, ovo, and lacto-vegetarians as well as vegans could be at risk for deficiencies of these minerals. Vegan diets also may be low in iodine and omega-3 fatty acids, EPA and DHA, but there are a lot of alternative ways for vegans to meet their diets, and that's why if you're interested in becoming a vegan, it's important to know what the potential risks are, so that you can identify sources in the diet to make sure that you're meeting those needs. Now, on page 180 in chapter 6, it really talks about proteins. Sources in the vegan diet include soy-based products, beans, seeds, nuts, grains, and vegetables. There are a tremendous amount of vitamin B12 sources, including products fortified with vitamin B12, such as soy beverages, rice milk, almond milk. Everyone's drinking all those alternative milk now. Breakfast cereals, we learned, are all fortified. Fortified nutritional yeast and dietary supplements. For vegans to get calcium, they get that typically from tofu processed with calcium. We know that broccoli, kale, collard, and mustard greens, bok choy, and beans contain calcium. Products are fortified with calcium, such as the soy beverages, rice milk, almond milk. Grain products, even now we know that orange juice is fortified with calcium. Vitamin D, lots of sunshine for us all, but a lot of products are fortified with vitamin D, like the soy beverages, rice milks, almond milks, breakfast cereals, and even margarine is fortified with vitamin D. For vegetarians to get good quality sources of iron, we know that beans, tofu, dark green leafy vegetables, dried fruits, whole grains, iron fortified grain products, and we know that we can increase our absorption of iron-containing foods when we complement them with vitamin C found in citrus, fruit, tomatoes, strawberries, and dark green vegetables. So this is part of that whole complementary foods. Zinc, we find that in whole grains, wheat germ, legumes, nuts, tofu, and fortified breakfast cereal. When we talk about iodine, most of our salt is iodized. Sea vegetables, seaweed, and food grown near the sea. And then for those vegans that are omitting all fish, to get their omega-3s, which you now know is very essential, canola oils, flaxseed, and flaxseed oils. They even put flaxseed in everything now. I've seen it in chips and cereals. Some of you have those in your food labels. Walnuts, sea vegetables, seaweed. We can get the EPA and DHA and microalgae. So omega-3 can be found from lots of other sources than the traditional sources of fish. So vegetarian diets, you might try it. Plant-based diet, majority of it. So, but it's important to know that the types of vegetarian diets and the benefits and risks. That's the end of Chapter 6. Be sure to complete your homework assignment for the week. And our test is coming up, so it's very important that you use the study guide I provided to prepare you for that test. It is our proctored exam, and it will not be open book, no notes, no books. So use your study guide, watch all the videos, review the end of the chapter information, the summary, as well as the sample test questions there to get you prepared for that. Thanks a lot. Have a great week.